Hello and welcome to Skyline's second episode tonight. I'm Driti Atri. Well, we are going to talk about a young Indian techie chasing the American dream. Unfortunately, he has passed away on a dark street in Philadelphia. Nearly 100,000 fake degrees trigger fresh fear for the H-1B visa holders. In the meantime, Indian workers in Europe, they make shocking allegation of exploitation. A debate erupts over the image of Indian tourists abroad. Well, after that, let's move on to Mr. Trump. He secures billions of his deportation agenda. Asylum seekers in Florida, they face unexpected legal surprises, and one of the most influential Indian origin voices in America's AI policy, he is walking away from the White House. These stories, they may sound unrelated, but they are connected by one common thread: the changing reality of Indians abroad. From opportunity to uncertainty, from success to scrutiny, from dreams to difficult question. Every day, millions of Indians living overseas, they are navigating new challenges, changing the immigration policy, economic uncertainty, and growing global attention. So tonight, we bring you 9 stories that everybody in the world is talking about. In the first segment, can you imagine receiving a phone call in the middle of a night? Not from your son, not from your brother, not from your friend, but from the police. And they tell you that the person you love, he's gone forever. Well, that nightmare has become reality for a family in Telangana. 28-year-old Anshul Kuncha, he had done what millions of young Indians, they dream of doing. He moved to America. He found a job. He started building a future. 4 years ago, he left Hyderabad with hopes of success and stability. In fact, his family believed that he was living the American dream, the ultimate dream. But what happened next? It has shocked Indians across the world. Anshul, he worked at a multinational company. Like many young professionals trying to manage rising cost, he also delivered pizzas on the weekend to earn some extra money. It was supposed to be a simple side job for him, basically a way to supplement his income and build financial security. But instead, it became a death sentence for him. According to investigators, a pizza order, it came in shortly after the midnight. Well, the delivery address, it was a housing unit in Philadelphia that was supposed to be vacant. Nothing seemed unusual at first though. Anshul picked up the order and he headed to that location. What happened next? It sounds like a scene from a crime thriller. Ladies and gentlemen, surveillance cameras, they reportedly captured him walking towards the address carrying the pizza. Behind him, 2 individuals wearing dark clothes and wearing backpacks. They appeared to be following him. Moments later, there was an attack. When police arrived, Anshul was laying on the street. In fact, he had multiple injuries. Unfortunately, he passed away. Now, interestingly, police did not believe that the robbery was the motive here because the cash that he was carrying, it was supposedly untouched. And his belongings, they were not stolen. Investigators, they believe that this was not an ordinary robbery going wrong. His family says it was a trap. His sister Tanvi says that somebody deliberately placed a fake pizza order just to deceive him. According to her, the attackers, they were waiting for him. They didn't want money, they didn't want the pizza. They simply wanted him all gone. Can you think about that for a moment? A young man leaves India, works hard, in fact takes on extra shift to help his future, answers a delivery request and walks straight into what his family believes was a planned attack. Tanvi, she has now issued an emotional warning to the families across India. She says parents often push their children to move abroad believing that their life that they are going to live, it is going to be better. But her brother's story, it shows a different reality. A reality where immigrants often work multiple jobs, spend long hours alone and face risks that family back home rarely sees. Well, the tragedy, it has sent shockwaves through the Indian community in America now. Thousands of students and professionals, they work part-time, they drive late, they deliver food, they travel alone, and that too to unfamiliar neighborhoods. Well, for them, Anshul passing away, it feels personal. In the meantime, the Indian consulate in New York has expressed condolences and says it is assisting the entire family. But for Anshul's parents, there is only one request: bring their son home. A young life, a grieving family, and a mystery that the investigators are still trying to solve. Now, let's hop on to the second segment where we're going to talk about the H-1B visa. Again, the path that Indians follow. Well, what if the degree hanging on somebody's wall, it was never really earned? What if the certificate that helped somebody secure a job, a promotion, or maybe even a visa, it was completely fake? That question is now sending shockwaves across both India and the US. Authorities have uncovered what is being described as one of the biggest education fraud investigations in recent years. Nearly 100,000 fake degrees, forged certificates, and fabricated academic record, they have reportedly been seized. In the meantime, investigators say that the documents, they are linked to at least 28 institutions in India. Can you think about the scale for a moment here? 100,000. That is not a small scam. That is an entire underground industry in India. According to reports, investigators recovered counterfeit university seals, fake transcripts, and forged certificates covering fields such as engineering, medicine, and nursing as well. Now, in one particularly shocking allegation, a single institution is accused of issuing more than 36,000 fraud degrees. You know why this matters to Indians in US? Because education is the foundation of H-1B visa system. So when a company hires a foreign worker, educational qualifications are among the most important requirements. Degrees help prove the expertise. Degrees help determine eligibility. Degrees build trust. And when fake degrees enter the system, trust becomes the biggest casualty here. Well, authorities are now trying to determine whether some of these documents they were used in employment application or not, or maybe professional licensing request, or even visa petition. The overwhelming majority of Indian professionals earn their qualification honestly. They spent years studying, cleared difficult exams, and sacrificed their sleep, their comfort to build a successful future. But large fraud cases like this, it creates a problem for them. One dishonest application, it can create suspicion, and that too around thousands of honest ones. Immigration lawyers say that the investigation, it could lead to stricter verification procedure now. Employers, they may begin conducting additional checks now. Universities may face more scrutiny. Visa applications may take longer to process. Now, for genuine applicants, that means more paperwork, more question, more waiting. This case, it has now reignited one important debate about maintaining trust in international education system while still welcoming the global talent. Now, talking about the exploitation, let's talk about other way around. Exploitation of Indian workers. Can you imagine selling your wife's jewelry, borrowing money from your relative, and taking loans that you may spend years repaying because you believe that you are buying a better future for your entire family? Now imagine arriving in Europe and discovering that reality looks very, very different from what you were promised. Well, that is the exact controversy that is now unfolding in Italy. Ladies and gentlemen, authorities there, they are investigating allegations involving Indian workers recruited for a major construction project linked to a new US consulate building in Milan. According to the court documents, hundreds of Indian workers, they were allegedly recruited through intermediaries in New Delhi, and they were brought to Italy with promises of employment opportunity. But for many workers, getting the job reportedly came at a huge cost. They say that they paid nearly 5 lakh rupees just to secure a contract. Now, for many families, 5 lakh rupees, it's not just saving. It is debt, it is jewelry, it is mortgage, it is years of sacrifice. Workers told the investigators that they believed that they were making an investment in better future here. Instead, some now allege that they found themselves trapped in a difficult condition. In the meantime, court documents, they reportedly contain statements from dozens of Indian workers who claims that they worked extremely long shifts, often up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Many also claim that unexpected deduction for the housing or maybe food, it significantly reduced their income. One worker reportedly said that he was left with very little money after expenses despite spending most of his time working. Perhaps the most troubling allegation, it involves language. That's right. Several workers told the investigators that they signed contracts written in English despite not fully understanding the language here. Can you imagine signing documents that will determine your future while not fully understanding what they contain? That is a frightening situation, right? While investigation that is still ongoing though, but this story, it highlights a reality that often receives too little attention. Every year, thousands of Indians they leave home seeking opportunity overseas. Some succeed, many build wonderful lives though, but some they encounter exploitation, misinformation, a system that they do not fully understand. And yes, when things go wrong, they are often thousands of miles away from the family support. Well, let's move on to the tourists now. Why are Indian tourists hated overall? That means all around the globe. Well, a group of tourists dancing Garba in Vietnam. Sounds harmless, doesn't it? Well, not everybody thinks so. A viral video showing Indian tourists performing Garba on an airport. And that too in Vietnam, it has triggered an intense online debate. In the clip, travelers are seen dancing in a circle while waiting during their journey. Their luggage, it sits in the middle. Music plays, people laugh. Now to some viewers, it looked very joyful, but to others, it looked embarrassing. And just like that, another debate about Indian tourists, well, it is spreading across social media. Soon, people began sharing other examples. Videos of tourists filming reels in public spaces in the US. Travelers dancing on overcrowded streets. Groups creating social media content in location where locals expected very quiet behavior. Within hours, the discussion it expanded far beyond one video. Here, some people argued that Indians they are unfairly targeted. After all, tourists from every country they sometimes behave very differently, right? Americans they have faced criticism. British tourists they have faced criticism. Chinese tourists they have faced criticism. So why should Indians be singled out here? Though others disagree, they argued that India's rapidly growing tourist population means that every incident it receives greater attention. And because millions of Indians they are traveling internationally for the first time, there can be sometimes a gap between enthusiasm and awareness of local customs. Here, travel experts say that this particular debate it reflects a larger trend here. International travel it is no longer just about sightseeing. It is about social media. People want photos, they want reels, they want viral content. And sometimes the desire to create content that becomes more important than respecting the environment around them. But there is another side to this story. Now, many Indians traveling abroad, they are first generation international tourists. They have worked hard for years just to afford these experiences. They are excited, they are proud, and sometimes that excitement becomes highly invisible. The bigger question is this: well, when one traveler behaves badly, should an entire nation be judged? Ladies and gentlemen, that debate is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. As more Indians travel overseas every year, discussion about responsible tourism, cultural sensitivity, and public behavior, they are becoming more and more important. Well, the world is definitely watching India's growing global footprint, and every traveler in some way or the other becomes an ambassador of the country. Now let's skip the tourists here. Let's talk about the NRI, specifically Indians in the US. Here's a question: why NRIs are rushing towards Indian fixed deposits? Well, what if I told you that many Indians living in America, Canada, Britain and the Gulf too, they are suddenly paying more attention to Indian banks than the Wall Street? It sounds surprising, right? But that is exactly what is happening. At a time when global markets remain uncertain, many non-residential Indians, they are looking for something very simple, something predictable, something stable. And that is where NRE fixed deposits, they are making headlines. Several Indian banks are currently offering returns of up to 8%. Now in today's uncertain financial environment, that number, that's attracting a lot of attention across the world. Now think about it, many NRIs spend years working abroad. They save very carefully, well, they invest very cautiously, and they constantly look for safe ways to grow their money. Well, for them, the NRE deposits offer several advantages here. The interest earned is tax-free in India. The money can be transferred back overseas, and unlike the stock market, the returns are predictable. Financial experts say that this kind of trend, it reveals something important here. Many overseas Indians, they may live abroad, but they still see India as a key part of their financial future. They are buying homes in India. They are investing in Indian market, and increasingly they are parking money in Indian banks. Because while opportunity exists across the world, many NRIs still believe their long-term financial security that remains closely connected to India. Rising global uncertainty, concern about inflation, fluctuation in international market, everything is pushing many investors towards safer option. And for NRIs, India is no longer just home. It is increasingly becoming an important investment destination as well. Well, let's skip Indians for a second here. Let's talk about migrants in general, but how it is going to affect Indians too. Recently, Mr. Trump's $70 billion immigration victory, it is creating a lot of anxiety, specifically among the Indians. Imagine having $70 billion dedicated to just one issue, and that issue is immigration. And Mr. Trump, he has just secured one of the biggest immigration victories of his second term. That's right, the US Senate has now approved a massive $70 billion immigration enforcement package that will help fund deportation orders, detention facility, in fact border security and enforcement activities for years to come. Supporters, they are calling it a victory for law and order. But critics, they are calling it a major expansion of aggressive immigration policies. But regardless of where people stand politically, one thing is clear. The message coming from Washington that's unpredictable. Immigration enforcement is not slowing down. In fact, in recent months, many people believed that things could change after midterm election. There was expectation that political pressure might force a very softer approach now. And this particular bill, it changes that whole conversation. With funding now secured, immigration agencies, they will have a lot of resources available regardless of any future political uncertainty. Now, for undocumented immigrants, specifically Indians, this creates anxiety. For legal immigrants, it creates question. And for the communities across America, it signals that immigration will remain one of the biggest political issues in the country. Mr. Trump has built so much of his political identity around this topic only. In fact, his supporters, they continue to view border security as a top priority. His critics argue that enforcement alone, it cannot solve America's immigration challenges. But one thing is undeniable. Immigration remains at the center of American politics. And that reality affects millions of people here, specifically those still waiting for decisions about their future. Now, for immigrants around the globe, including Indians, the whole development in Washington, it is being watched very, very closely because policy decisions made there, it can influence lives, careers and family plans for years. Now, speaking of legal and illegal immigrants, let's hop on to their home, asylum. Asylum seekers, the one who are in the middle, in Florida, they are on high alert. Immigrants who are believing that they have maybe a year to prepare a life-changing court hearing. And now they are receiving a notice telling them to appear much sooner. You know what? That is happening in Florida. According to reports, individuals whose hiring were expected years from now, they are suddenly receiving notices with significantly earlier dates. Now, for many immigrants, be it Indian or non-Indian, the first hearing in an asylum case, it is one of the most important moments in their legal journey. It determines how the process is going to move forward. It shapes the legal strategy and it can significantly influence the future outcome. Now imagine for an immigrant preparing for a hearing that he or she thought would happen in 2028 and suddenly being told that it is going to appear this year. Lawyers, they say that changes are creating a lot of pressure. Preparing an asylum case, it's not simple. Evidence must be gathered. In fact, documents must be translated. Witness statements must be prepared. Legal arguments must be developed. All of this, it can take time. So when dates move forward unexpectedly, that whole preparation becomes much more difficult. Now, for many immigrants, they are very, very worried. Some fear that they will not have enough time. Others fear mistakes could damage their cases. Here, immigration authorities say that they are simply trying to process more and more cases more efficiently and reduce the court backlogs. But for the families already living with a lot of uncertainty, the sudden changes are creating fresh anxiety because for asylum seekers, every court date, it can influence the future of an entire family. Many immigrants, they have spent years waiting for clarity. Now, instead of relief, many are facing a race against time as they scramble to prepare for hearing that may arrive much sooner than anybody ever expected. Well, now, enough of the immigrants here. Let's talk about an Indian American who made the entire country proud. But now he is leaving the White House. He helped shape America's artificial intelligence strategy. And now he is leaving one of the most powerful buildings in the world. Sri Ram Krishnan, he has announced that he is stepping down from his role as a senior White House advisor on artificial intelligence. For many Indians around the globe, his story, it is inspiring. Born in Chennai, India, educated in India, built a career in Silicon Valley, worked at some of the world's biggest technology companies and eventually found himself helping shape policy in Washington. Can you think about how remarkable the journey is? From India's technology classrooms to the White House, his role becomes particularly important because AI is no longer just a technology story, right? It's a national security story. It is an economic story. It is a geopolitical story. Countries around the globe, they are competing just to dominate the AI revolution. While governments are investing billions, companies are racing to innovate and policymakers are trying to understand how AI will transform jobs, economies and societies. Here, Krishnan's departure, it marks the end of an important chapter. But it also highlights something bigger here. The growing influence of Indian origin professionals in global technology and policy making. From Silicon Valley CEO to the White House advisors, Indians, they continue to play increasingly important role in shaping the future. His journey reflects how talent from India is influencing the global decision at the highest level. It is a reminder that Indian diaspora, it is not only contributing to business or technology, but also helping shape the policies that will define the future. Basically, it's a changing reality for Indians abroad. From tragedy and uncertainty to ambition and achievement. Well, tonight's stories, they remind us that the journey of Indian diaspora, it is more complex than ever before. The opportunity remains a lot, but so does the risk. The success, it continues to inspire, and the challenges, they cannot be ignored. As the world changes, the global Indian community, it continues to adapt, grow, and make its mark across the continents. And here at Skyline, we continue bringing you the stories that matters the most. I'm Driti Atri. This was Skyline. See you tomorrow.